Hello, Bulldogs. Welcome to the Daily Show for Thursday, January 14th, 2021. In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday, here's a brief video about his life.
Yep, that's where he gave his biggest speech. Dear Tim and Moby, can you do a Martin Luther King movie? Thanks, Amari. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most important leaders of the American Civil Rights Movement. That was the effort to extend equal rights to all people, regardless of race. Well, in the first half of the 20th century, that was a controversial idea. In many parts of the country, African Americans were barred from participating in ordinary life. They couldn't eat at the same lunch tables, go to the same schools, or even use the same bathrooms as white people. This practice of separating African Americans from white people was called segregation. In the South, segregation was enforced through Jim Crow laws. They made it illegal for African Americans to mix with whites. They policed black behavior, too. African Americans had to live in separate neighborhoods, hold specific jobs, and talk to whites with the utmost respect. Try to fight it, and you risk jail time, injury, even death. There were no Jim Crow laws up north, but unspoken rules still kept African Americans apart. In many places, white homeowners would only sell their houses to other white people. These informal codes ensured that African Americans remained second-class citizens. Martin Luther King grew up in the midst of all that inequality. He was born in 1929 to a middle-class family in Atlanta, Georgia. Both his grandfather and his father were pastors at a local church. King attended religious colleges up north, in Philadelphia and Boston. He noticed black and white people mixing more freely than he'd seen growing up. Though these cities had their share of racial tension, they were a far cry from the way things were down south. Dr. King moved to Montgomery, Alabama with his wife, Coretta, in 1953. He became a pastor and community leader. Around that time, a local woman named Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give her bus seat to a white man. King joined forces with activist Joanne Robinson to organize a massive boycott of the Montgomery bus system. Most black citizens of Montgomery refused to ride the buses for over a year. Many were violently attacked just for walking instead of taking a bus. Dr. King's house was bombed, and along with dozens of other protesters, he was thrown in jail. But these injustices drew national attention to the issue. And in 1956, a Supreme Court decision banned segregated buses. After that victory, King helped organize a group of churches dedicated to nonviolent protests for civil rights. He was inspired by the life of Mahatma Gandhi, whose nonviolent leadership helped free India from British rule. Over the next decade, King led protests and marches all over the country. The biggest was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital to support civil rights. It was there that Dr. King delivered his momentous I Have a Dream speech.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Yeah, kind of gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? King's gift for public speaking helped inspire millions of people. His words gave them the hope and courage to believe in the future he envisioned. 2 years later, the protests he led throughout Alabama caught the world's attention. People watched in shock as local police turned fire hoses and attack dogs on peaceful protesters. Well, people often feel threatened by change. In fact, making folks uncomfortable was kind of the point of all this protest. In a letter written from an Alabama jail, King said, "Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue." In other words, things change only when conditions are made so stressful, people demand it. Oh yeah, King was arrested lots of times during these marches, but the result was worth it. His work pressured Congress to pass groundbreaking laws, moving society closer to his vision. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 overturned segregation laws around the country. In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He went on to fight against poverty and the Vietnam War. Then, in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. His killer, James Earl Ray, was captured months later. King was only 39 years old, but in his short life, he changed the face of this country. Without his influence, who knows how long it would have been before equal rights were protected for everyone? Yeah, you're right. We still struggle with racial equality to this day. But thanks to Dr. King and other civil rights leaders, we know that great change is possible.
I have a dream today.
Remember, there's no school tomorrow because it's a teacher workday. Also, we're off on Monday to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Day. As you know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing against the Saints this weekend. Stay tuned for a video that the Buccaneers sent us.
First playoff game for Tampa in 13 years. First playoff game for Washington in 5.
Ball tipped to the line. Oh, it's picked off by Sean Murphy Bunting. Antonio Brown, 3-2-1. Touchdown, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One ball, Chris Godwin, touchdown, Tampa Bay. Perfect throw from Brady, and Godwin beat the defender.
They are not going to sit back and play prevent defense. They're going to blitz.
Watch the throw. Heineke will go down for the first time. He is sacked.
Razor sharp Brady on that pass, and Tampa's in the red zone.
And the ball off. Fournette is center step. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. He's sacked at the 41-yard line. Levante David has a quarterback sack.
Tom Brady will get his 31st all-time playoff win.
The weather. Today's temperature is expected to reach a partly cloudy 66 degrees. Today's lunch at Bing. Cheese or pepperoni pizza slice, bacon burger mac and cheese, assorted fruit cup, crisp garden side salad, and assorted low-fat milk. That's all for this week. Have a great long weekend. See you on Tuesday. How will you be a leader today?